Okay. Now let's now go to the one of the last speakers for today's session. No? So the COVID-19 pandemic has disrupted learning systems around the world, no, impacting how we deliver training and education. The normal day-to-day routines have been altered for a number of reasons, including changes to scheduled training rotation, physical distancing requirements, trainee redeployment, and heightened level of concern. No? Training leaders will likely need to adapt their programs to maximize learning and ensure competent graduates. So next in the list of our speaker leading the topic, Mr. Oliver Rickilman. So Mr. Oliver Rickilman is a global industry expert and executive coach, and also an associate fellow in people management awarded by the People Management Association of the Philippines. No? He was also among the top 100 Filipinos on LinkedIn to follow. Okay. Oliver is also a certified total reward specialist from the CN Institute of Total Rewards and a chartered professional in human resources by CPHR Philippines. He was also internationally recognized with HR Leadership Award in Bangalore, India by the Institute of Public Enterprise Innocent and regarded as one of the 100 global HR minds in Mumbai, India, no, by Times Ascent. No, he completed also an executive education program in INSEAD, France main campus, and has completed an executive diploma degree management development program in Asian Institute of Management. Now, to discuss the next topic, implementing a competency-based training program during pandemic, we have Mr. Oliver de Kilman. Yan. Hi, Liv. Good day.
Hi,
Good day.
hi, good afternoon. Can you all hear me well?
Yeah,
Can
we
you
can
hear
hear
me
you
well,
well.
Jester?
Yeah,
Okay,
we can
thank
hear
you
you
so
well.
much. All right, let me share my slide.
Yeah, and thank you again for this event. Now we saw Oliver de Kilman in the past two assemblies, and now we have Oliver again no, in this session. Yeah, and we can now see your PowerPoint presentation.
Okay, is it on show now?
Yeah, it's on show now.
All right, thank you, Jest, and good afternoon, everyone. So I guess everybody's concerned about how to deliver competency-based training in a situation like this. More recently, we have been, given notices that we have to minimize our presence in the office, but yet we need to we need to address concerns rather, in terms of skills gap and competency gaps. Internal growth is something that you have to continue doing, as mentioned earlier by Floor. Whenever there's one recruit, two actually leaves the organization. So when that happens, when two resigns, not only the skills is missing, but also the wisdom. So I will not go through this because I was already well introduced by Jest, and I think you can already check my LinkedIn profile for all other details. So first and foremost, let's take a look at the expectations versus disruption. The disruption that we're having right now places us in a position that we ended up expecting more. In fact, the work from home became 24/7, which is a bit crazy, di ba? You don't expect your employees, just because they are working at home, to be available to you 24/7. They also have their lives. The only thing that changed actually is the location of the office, the environment. But that doesn't mean that just because they're working at home, they are comfortable already with the job that they're doing. Actually, it's not. It's just the same life in the office, same life at work. And the only difference, again, is because they are working at home in their own convenience. But let's put a limit to that convenience as well. So everybody's pushed to learn quick how to manage Zoom, how to operate rather Zoom, how to manage time, how to operate Microsoft Teams, and all others. So I'd like to, as I begin, I'd like to give some point, or rather point some differences between competency-based training and competency-based learning. These two concepts may be the same with each other, but they're totally different from one another. So here's a basic guide in creating a competency-based training program. You have to start off with the roles existing. Uh, There was one time in an organization that I joined, an FMCG, where the change in the vision and the business imperatives forced the organization to change its role. So not only the role in the supply chain, but also in the manufacturing and also in commercial. So everybody had to change their jobs. I mean, not jobs. I mean the positions and of course the KPI that goes with it. So you need to analyze the existing list of the jobs available if those are still current or has already evolved into something more dynamic. And then second, you have to move to the conduct or the conduct of training needs analysis. You need to analyze the gap and point out the missing links that will force the person, or not help force a person. I mean that will help the person adjust to the current role. Now, after conducting the training needs analysis, you can now identify. Hopefully, the result will help you identify the competencies of the job in order for it to be delivered and performed satisfactorily or excellently. Then you can already come up with the design of your implementation. And when you design implementation, you have to consider now this time around, you need to consider the platform in which the design will be delivered. Is it a design for a face-to-face conduct, or it can be done on an online platform? Now, when you conduct a competency-based assessment, as you evaluate the training program, you have to evaluate as well the person being trained, or maybe the it can also be done the other way around, no? Or the person and also the design of the program. Why so? Kasi most of the time we fail to recognize the value or the importance of evaluating the program itself. We only go after the design, and then it's like a shoot and miss. So we just conduct it, we implement it, but then we evaluate the person being trained, but not the design itself. And then when we look at the performance, when we evaluate the performance of the training after the training, then we assume whatever the result may be, we assume that it has something to do with the design itself. So I think the evaluation should be separate. You evaluate the design separately from the way you evaluate the training.
Mm.
And
Dave,
then you come
I
up with
think
a needs
the
analysis.
microphone, sorry,
Hello.
is too close to your skin.
Okay, okay.
It's
So
hitting the sound.
sorry.
Yeah, no worries.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
better. But we can hear you
Okay, this is
better,
better now.
even that far. Yeah.
Okay, sige. So, and then you start to analyze and review. Oh. So, the focus of CBT or competency-based training is actually on the development of employee to improve performance and meet changes in roles and duties. This is the objective of a competency-based training program. The most important when you have the design is to identify the mode of delivery. Like what I said earlier, as you design the training program, at the initial phase pa lang of the design, you have to consider already how it's going to be delivered. Lucky for us now, because it's already a rule of thumb that the delivery of any competency-based training has to be done online. Else, having a face-to-face would result to a violation of safety protocol. So I think Flor also mentioned this earlier in her presentation that we have generational differences in terms of ability to learn and also ability to work, and even the way we understand things. Simply because as we differ in every generation, we were also molded by the environment we were growing in. So the older ones at that time, the lack of technology forced them to think faster, force them to be more madiskarte. I'm not saying that the younger ones now are less discarded, but what I'm trying to say is the environment at that time did not comply with their convenience. It's not the same now. Lately, I mean, everybody checks their Google for something that they want to know. Before, you have to burn an eyebrow to learn something. Meaning, nagsisindi ka ng kandila and you really have to research. So I think I will not dwell into that, but I just want to present this that starting 2015, we have already 5 generations working together. This was the time this was a time in 2015 when the 21-year-old graduates, 22-year-old graduates wants to finally get into employment. So from 2015 to present, we have been working with five generations altogether. Well, if you're going to look at the slight difference from 2015 to present, the number is quite increasing. And of course, the older ones are also retiring, so they're also decreasing in numbers. As they decrease, we also increase with the digital natives. So it's good to have digital natives for the next 5 years or even now because you have the the digital natives in their generation, the ones teaching the older ones how to cope up with the demands of technology. So, with that being said, you can also consider face to face, and then you mix it with an online, so it's going to be blended. Looking back again in one of my past experiences in an FMCG company, we came up with a CBL, a competency-based learning program, and we call it Learning Cafe. Everything was provided online for us to, to learn whatever that interests us, and then from there we can already join a learning cafe online where we can interact with other program takers as well or program enrollees. I would like to share this with you. I lifted this from lambdasolutions.net. Lambda Solutions not came up, but they're subscribing 12 steps for implementing competency-based training. Now, if you're going to look at the 12 steps and how they say that it can be done right, you will notice that there is always a determination or how do you call this uh, factors not factors, but metrics to be in place to determine how 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 our trainings be measured in terms of delivery, and of course in terms also of result. Kasi there's got to be a direct link from the training that you have conducted or that you are designing to an output. Oh, kasi if you're going to have a very expensive training program and yet you did not hit the target in terms of gross revenue for the business, then something is wrong with the training. Now, not everything is not everything is how do you call this can be equated to gross revenues, but you can equate it in other values. For example, safety, diba? If you work in a manufacturing firm, uh, gross revenue may not be as significant as earning in terms of target. I mean, earning targets, but then you maintain zero accidents in your manufacturing firm for the past 12 months. Now that in itself is a good indication that your training program is effective in terms of safety. So competency based is different because sorry, what I'm trying to say is competency based learning. Competency based learning is different. If you're going to take a look at how competency based is described in terms of learning, it is actually voluntary. It is voluntary. You're the one looking for learning, which is why when we uh, what they call is get service providers, when we get providers from outside that will provide us the learning modules that we need, it's more towards self exploration or personal development. It has nothing to do directly with the business. What the business only wanted to do whenever we provide it, whenever the business provides it, is because we want to inspire everyone to push themselves forward in order to make themselves motivated. So this is what makes competency-based learning different from competency-based training. I just have to mention this because I don't want you guys to confuse that competency-based learning is the same as competency-based training. No, they're not. They're not the same. They may have similarities, but they're totally different from each other. Oh, now here's another from the organization that I came across. It's subscribing to for four elements of competency-based learning. So that's the advancement, assessment, learner support, and understanding and knowledge. But when you these four elements doesn't have to come in a series of number, meaning sequence of number, but they can actually come interchanging each other. It's element nga eh, element. So when you look at CBL, there should be learner support, there should be assessment to assess what you have learned,
and of course understanding and knowledge. And the assessment will assure or guarantee you that there's learning and there's understanding, and of course advancement. Because if you're going to take on this program, there's got to be the next program that will be a prerequisite for the previous one, right? Now, disruption disruption is everywhere. I mean, it's even more prevalent now, knowing that we are in pandemic. But then, when it comes to disruption, it's not limited only to pandemic. Number one disruption that we have, even before pandemic, is actually budget. Why so? If you have enough budget, it becomes disrupting because the management has capability to purchase anything off the shelf. But at the same time, it will also be disrupting because if you do not have enough budget for a particular training program, then everybody will be forced to find ways to train themselves. So here are five traps to avoid in executing an effective competency-based training program. First and foremost, never use competency-based program as a reward. It is not an incentive. You don't incentive a good performing employee by giving him an MBA degree. No, it's not that. You're giving out MBA degree to a high potential talent because you're looking at this person to be leader of a function in the future or to be a leader of organization. Now, I'm not so sure, but if my memory serves me right, I think it was David Green in David Green's study. I'm not so sure. Okay, I'm just saying this because top head years ago, I used to think that there are only three layers of leadership: the leader of self, leader of others, and the leader of leaders. But then, over time, there's the leader of function, and then there's the leader of organization. So when we give away MBA degrees, it's because we're looking forward for that person to be the leader of the function, to be the next in line. So never use MBA or any other form of scholarship as an incentive for a performing employee. Now, second trap is that failure to use CBT to address gap in competencies. Um, well, in the past, HR department were more of like a training center, no training center, because every week may training, every month there's going to be training, and then in those training programs the expectation is more on R&R, the creation and refreshment. So we go to the resort, we pick a good venue, we conduct training for a day, then R&R for 2 days. So maybe it is training because it harmonizes the relationship, and it harmonizes skills, and there's camaraderie. But it's not CBT. It's not competency-based training. That's what I'm trying to say. Because when you conduct competency-based training, gaps or competency gaps should be identified. So don't use CBT to address gap in competencies, but rather use CBT to remedy gaps in terms of skills. Now, third item is fail to address gaps found in 9 boxes to prepare performing talents to high potential talents. So tinitingnan kasi natin when we look at 9 boxes, the high potential talent against high performing. So when we put the person in training, sinasabi natin na oh high potential siya, kaya i-train natin. What are you going to do for the low potential? Di ba? Di ba parang nakakatawa? High potential na nga eh. Tapos iti-train mo pa para maging high potential ulit. No. You use 9 boxes, identify the low performing, the low potential into becoming high potential. Because if you're going to stick with the 9 boxes that you have had 5 years ago, it's not going to be relevant now. More so if it happened last year. Because your 9 boxes should be an annual exercise, should be an annual practice. So number four, fourth trap is a budget-centric decision. We point and shoot. We compromise on missing out a very important training because we look at training as a bleeding cow. I mean, it's mahal. We always look at the affordability against requirement. A requirement to eh, diba? So why consider affordability? It should have been part of your preparation a year ago for the budget this year. So when you make your budget in terms of affordability, there's already the line of sight that will guide you to address those skills that needs to be enhanced. No, so lastly, short-term program, and then it lacks the most important part of the program, which is program evaluation and post-program assessment. You see, it's rarely I'd run into a training program that has post-evaluation or it has post-program assessment. Wala eh. We only evaluate the trainees, but we don't evaluate the program itself. So that's another trap. Now, five highlights to consider in executing an effective competency-based training program. One is to address changes in roles caused by reorganization or organizational restructuring. Sabi ko kanina, don't use CBT to address skill gaps, I mean gaps in terms of competencies, but use it to address gaps in terms of skills. Kasi skills is directly related to the job that you have, right? And jobs are oftentimes, the changes rather in jobs is oftentimes caused by restructuring and reorganization. That's how it is, business change. Maybe today the job for a salesman will require a salesman to drive a motorbike, but because of pandemic, baka iba na, no? So it changes over time, and that over time somehow is more frequent than it used to be 5 years ago. Now, CBT is an effective tool to equip employees with competencies required to achieve business imperatives, company vision, and mission. Okay, I might sound like I'm contradicting myself because in the previous slide I said don't use it to address competencies in gap, but gap in skills. But what I'm trying to say here in terms of competencies, those competencies directly related to the job. Kasi when the business changes business imperatives, it will directly affect the budget, and there has to be a target for the gross revenue kasi wala kang perang pagkukunan, right? So third is while there is difference between CBT and CBL, it is equally important also to have both programs available to employees and to make it accessible by everybody. Um, may mga iba kasing organization. Again, there's nothing wrong when you incentivize a good performer. In fact, that's very good when you incentivize them with an MBA degree. You sponsor them going to Ateneo, you sponsor them going to AIM. It inspires everyone to do the same. But yet, don't limit it. The accessibility rather, don't limit it only to those high potential. Kasi meron kang mga low potential dyan, mga low-lying fruits, ika nga. But they are, willing to invest on themselves. So make it available for everybody to attend. Um, Especially if it's competency-based learning. Now, CBT is an intervention tool to improve performance. So this is what I'm trying to say before I get myself contradicted again. No, no, it's not. What I'm trying to say is CBT is an intervention tool. It is directly to address a performance, to improve performance, address poor performers. The intention is really to equip to equip our employees, our talents. Now, lastly, a CBT must always have the agenda of skills enhancement, process improvement, and skills development. The most usual excuse is always the budget. It is the biggest elephant in the room. Nandyan siya, but everybody tries to avoid it. But we have to recognize that there's an elephant in the room, and that big elephant is always the budget. And mahirap kasi at the start of the year, then that's where you're going to decide whose budget are we going to spend, and then later on let's just reclassify the expenses. Mahirapan tayo dun, and then you will only come up with a CBT that is designed to fail from the very start. So in closing, competency-based training is intended to enhance current skills to ensure good performance. Now, expectations are high because you need to evaluate the trainee, have a post-job evaluation, and of course, the design itself has to be evaluated as well. And it's also reward-driven kasi when you conduct training, in order for that new learned skill to be put into practice, you have to put in some incentives and some rewards para parati niya magagamit, and then it will eventually become his second nature. Third, a CBT rather is mandate driven. So there's a reorganization, change in roles, change in duties, then therefore the mandate is that we need to train everybody with the new concept and design. Now, lastly, it's budget driven. Budget driven, what by saying is coming from the budget of the organization, not on a personal budget. So CBL is different. I mean, CBL is intended to enhance current skills and learn new ones, and not a sense of mastery. So ito yung mga talent natin na looking forward to have their MBA, looking forward to have additional certifications and recognitions. And like what I said earlier, don't just make CBL available for the high potential, but you should consider it also in making it available for everybody to have an access to. Second is expectations are low because this is voluntary. Depende sa gusto ng tao. If the person wants to pursue an additional degree in education, and it's personal agenda. Third, yes, third is personal aspiration. Oftentimes, the driver behind this motivation, because a person aspires for a better job, aspires for internal growth, looking for career advancement. So it's all about self pagdating sa CBL. Now, it's personal budget. And pag tinignan mo yung demographics ng organization nyo, when you look at the demographics, you will find out that the younger ones are more likely to take on a master's degree comparing those married with 5-year-old kids. Now, in closing, we are all bent towards change. Now it's time to change. Change in a way that we need to change our frame of mind. That though it might be expensive and costly, but you have to consider the expense that is entailed if you are not going to train your employees. Now you have to consider training as well in terms of regulatory compliance. If there's regulatory compliance, rule of thumb, you comply, diba? But then, on the other hand, you need to comply also for the internal mandate. If there's a reorganization, then the reorganization should provide support by coming up with interventions in order to reinforce the reorganization. So that's me, and that's my presentation. If you have any questions, I'll be free to answer those. Thank you, Jess.
Okay, again, thank you for the reminder and the guidance, no? So the floor is now open for questions. So if you have any questions regarding the planet discussion, feel free to raise any questions, no? So again, no, so a poorly designed program no addresses the wrong competencies, trains the wrong people, and of course no uses the wrong intervention. Sabi nga ng isang comment kanina, not all problems is kailangan training ang solution, no? It is true, no? So let me just highlight some of the insights here of our audiences, no? Sabi nga ni Tesha, no? One
I would
strategy
like
is
to address the comment of Mary Ludwig
Aha,
and Lane Mar. Okay, not that I disagree with all of you with your opinion on the subject, but I would like to reiterate lang competency-based training. Competency-based training is an intervention tool. Do not use it to evaluate a person's performance. It's going to be unfair. For example, say gawin natin example is a flight attendant, di ba? Now, flight attendant, when you are in an airline, when you're inside the aircraft, the flight attendant are expected to be many things. One of them is to be a nurse, to be a safety officer, to be even a karate do master, aikido master. Kasi pag may mag-hijack, we expect the flight attendant to be sharpshooters, parang ganon. There's that level of expectation that they know what they're doing. Now, if you're going to use CBT to assess their performance, they will fail. But if you will use CBT to address those concerns and those issues coming from the customers, from the flyers' perspective about what they expect from a flight attendant, then that will be a very effective tool. Use it to address gaps in terms of skills. Kaya nga sinasabi ko kanina, in terms of skills. Kasi it's directly related to the job being performed. Yung competency kasi, personal competencies natin, like the analytical skills, the way we think, the frame of mind, the way we talk to people, leadership, and all that. Now, that falls now on CBL, competency-based learning. Yun. So,
I forgot the other person who said, medyo mabilis eh. Was it Mary? There was another person I mentioned earlier. I forgot. Maybe we can lane competency-based training to use to know who is preferred. No, no. Like what I said, it's a trap. Never use CBT to incentivize a performing employee. Okay. I don't know if all of you guys here are using 9 boxes, because in most organizations that I have joined for the past 15 years, we have been using 9 boxes. When I started in HR in 2004, coming from sales and marketing, immediately we were already using, the organization that I joined was already using 9 boxes. And when was this? 2004? When I joined an FMCG group, when I started my career in sales and marketing again, we were even used 9 box. We were using 9 boxes, I mean, and it's being used on us to identify who are the next in line. Now, when we say next in line, hindi ibig sabihin na meron yung promise of promotion. No, hindi yon. High potentials being identified because in case of resignation, in case of absence, paano pag yung boss ko ay natake sa puso? Diba? So, sino ipapalit natin sa kanya? Ako ba o yung kasama ko? Diba? So, CBT, competency-based training, is not intended to recognize my performance. Hindi yun, porque ba't high potential ako, you have to send me to MBA. Eh, what about those low potential? Diba? Imagine mo yung 9 boxes, only one will make it to the top. Only one. But when we look at the bottom, when you do your bell curve, ang dami niyan. Diba? Ang dami niyan. Mangilan-ngilan lang po yung performer kasi we want to, the wider the rating scale. Pagka meron kang 7 rating scale, 11 rating scale, ibig sabihin ng panipis yung mga top performers mo. Then your 9 boxes might even turn out to be 36 boxes. So again, don't consider CBT or CBL as a reward. When you do that, it's a trap. You will fail to address the main issue, and the main issue is to increase performance. Oh. So I hope I was able to address that correctly.
Ayan. So, I think
Ano yun? CBT
very
may
clear.
be considered as a performance booster, but not as a performance measure. Yes, correct. Tessia, I agree with Tessia. It should be a performance booster, meaning to improve skills, and of course, along with the expectations. Kasi pagka nag-train ka lang nag-train, kandak ng training, but then you are not changing the KPIs, no, in terms of performance evaluation, then you will have a very expensive R&R. Yun lang. I agree with Tessia. Was it Tessia? Tessia.
Yeah, it was.
Okay. CBT can be used as a tool to increase performance. Yes, correct. Correct. Thank you. Eunice. Eunice or Eunice?
I think meron din question kanina dito regarding ito. So, any tips for those managers, executive level of a mindset that whenever a problem arises in a department or section, they always think that training is the immediate solution. Example, high customer complaints or high rejects of products.
I totally agree with Shaira, no? When she said na immediately we use CBT as a intervention in terms of ano ba tawag dito, to solve an immediate problem. Training is not the sole solution in terms of problems or even for performance issues. You have to consider also leadership. Yung number one on the list, you have to consider leadership. Baka kasi siguro walang teaching skills yung leader, yung manager, kaya nagfe-fail yung mga tao. Diba? Kasi as you rise to the ladder of the corporate success, you are now becoming leader of leaders, right? Kasi self-leadership, ikaw lang. Then when you get yourself promoted, you become leader of leaders. So now the expectation in terms of managing people is a little bit different. More so if you become leader of leaders, manager ka ng managers. Kasi all the more that you need to be more coaching and you need to be more teaching rather than just being punitive. So you have to consider all other angles in terms of resolving an issue, especially pagdating sa customer service. Now, when I say customer service, you have to consider all other angles. You have to take the result with a grain of salt. No? Di ba, pag nagkakandak tayo ng customer climate survey, blah, 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 then the negative result, panain natin si customer service rep. Asan yung manager niya? gapos natin sa sa puno. Sila yung may sala. No, it's not that. Kasi while there's value in customer service result survey, you have to take it with a grain of salt. Kasi baka rin technology-driven in complaints. You have to look at the smallest comment on the detail, the detail of the smallest comment rather, the detail of the smallest comment, because probably it's the technology. You don't know how to use the website. You don't know how to use the smart app. And now, only in 2015, slowly we're coming up with where we're receiving younger generations for customers. Only in 2015. How long has it been? 5 years? Mangilan-ilan pa yung mga digital natives tulad mo, Chester, di ba? Konti pa lang kayong mga digital natives. Marami pa kami. Yung mga tulad ko, marami pa. Ako, natuto ko mag-Excel years ago, but but because I don't use it all the time, I have to relearn many things. Diba? Also with PowerPoint. I mean, PowerPoint changes every now and then, almost every day with all the updates. So that is what I'm trying to say. You need to take it with a grain of salt, and you have to consider and look at different angles, rather than just mainly looking at the result and then, hindi marunong sumagot si customer service. I-train natin. Kunin natin si Mr. Rickelman. Kasi magaling siya mag-training. Kunin niyo ako immediately on the initial discussion pa lang, I'll shoot it down. Why? Because you will only be wasting your resources. You have to consider all other angles before you go into competency-based training even.
Yun, no? Siguro eye-opening na yan, ha? So thank you for revealing the truth about those kind of traps nga, no, as discussed earlier. Okay, so I guess we conclude the plenary session. No? So again, when planning a program, always consider the business needs, no, the current competencies, even the methods. No? It's not always the training's the correct or right intervention, of also the cost and effectiveness. No? So along with the continued focus on learner or trainee wellness, educators will have to optimize existing training experiences, adapt those that are no longer viable, employ new technologies, and be flexible when assessing competencies. No? So these practical tips offer guidance on how to adapt education programs within the constraints of the pandemic landscape, innovation, collaboration, flexibility, and planning within the era of competency-based training.
Just
Yeah.
can I interact lang with Mary Lude?
Sure.
Kasi sabi niya, this can be a good, a useful tool to add for PIP. A CBT would be useful to enhance their performance, and monitoring process would also be a plus. Maybe you can take out PIP kasi PIP is punitive, performance improvement plan. If you fail your PIP 3 consecutive if you're unsuccessful with your PIP in 3 consecutive evaluation, then the end result is termination, di ba? We don't suspend it. So right after, we might as well terminate. However, my take on the PIP, even if you have competency-based training, personal kasi siya eh. Diba, personal development yung PIP. Let's say, for example, ako, iba yung pangangailangan ko sa pangangailangan ni Jess. Although we might be doing the same job, we might be doing the same role, but my needs are different from him. So maybe siguro I will fail in terms of performance because my needs are different. And all other factors could come in. Got generational gaps, blah, 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 my background growing up. Maybe I didn't come from a private school, that's why I speak this way. Just came from a considered to be an Ivy League of the Philippines. So those are the things that we need to consider. However, again, competency-based is best fit to directly address an additional skill or a gap in skills for the job to be performed. But if you're going to use the result of PIP, pwede rin, pero advice ko sa'yo, Mary Lou, right? Mary is, if you can let go of PIP, just let go of PIP. And then address a skills gap as directly as possible. For the job lang mismo. Tingnan mo yung job muna as ano bang requirement ng trabaho for it to be delivered satisfactorily. But for the PIP, it's personal development.
Ayan. So for more questions now, Oliver Riquelman would be happy to answer. No? Kapag meron siya ulit available time, you can find him on LinkedIn, Oliver Riquelman. So thank you again for the session. Okay, bye. Thank you. Be safe.